The Galactic Council had 3 absolute rules about humans. Never let them near your young. Never let them adopt anything. And never, under any circumstances, leave them unsupervised with species classified as apex predators. Sarah Chen had broken all 3 before lunch. The mining colony on Theta 7 was supposed to be a simple assignment. 6 months of geological surveys, minimal contact with the indigenous fauna, and a fat paycheck waiting at the end. What the briefing hadn't mentioned was that the local apex predators, the Crethans, were facing extinction, and their rehabilitation facility was right next to the human research station. Sarah first saw the cubs on her 3rd day. They were about the size of earth wolves, covered in midnight blue scales that shimmered like oil slicks, with 6 legs and crystalline eyes that reflected light like prisms. The facility's director, a nervous Quellan named Blake, had nearly had a cardiac incident when he found her crouched at the fence, cooing at the juveniles. "Specialist Chen, please step away from the enclosure," Blake had chittered, his translator crackling with panic. "Those are Class A predators. They killed 3 settlement guards last year." "They're babies," Sarah had replied, not moving an inch. "Look at their paws. They're still too big for their bodies." That should have been the end of it. But humans, as the galaxy had learned through countless incidents, had a fatal flaw. They couldn't resist things that were simultaneously dangerous and cute. The scarf went missing on a Tuesday. It was Sarah's favorite, a hand-knitted monstrosity in crimson and gold that her grandmother had made before humanity even reached Mars. She'd left it on a bench outside the facility while helping Blake catalog dietary requirements. When she returned, it was gone, and a trail of suspiciously cub-sized paw prints led directly under the fence. Blake discovered her inside the enclosure 20 minutes later. "Sarah!" His translator screeched so loudly it startled a flock of native birds half a kilometer away. "You cannot be in there." "The cubs are still genetically programmed to hunt." Sarah didn't respond. She was frozen, staring at something that made Blake's 3 hearts skip in unison. The 2 Crethan cubs, siblings the facility had designated as K7 and K9, had taken her scarf. But they hadn't destroyed it or used it as a toy. They'd somehow threaded it through a series of branches in an elaborate weave, creating a makeshift sling suspended between 2 trees. K7 was curled up inside it, sleeping peacefully, while K9 sat guard beneath, occasionally batting at the dangling ends. "They made a hammock," Sarah whispered. Blake's mandibles clicked nervously. "Crethan cubs don't display tool use until after their first hunt. This shouldn't be possible." Sarah took a slow step forward. K9's head snapped toward her, crystalline eyes narrowing. The cub's lips pulled back, revealing rows of serrated teeth designed to shear through bone. A low rumble built in its chest, a sound that registered on frequencies that made human hindbrains scream. "Run." Sarah sat down. She simply dropped into a cross-legged position 3 meters away and waited. Blake, watching through the fence with a tranquilizer rifle he was too afraid to fire, thought he was about to witness the shortest human assignment in colony history. K9 stopped growling. Its head tilted, confused by prey that refused to run. Sarah pulled a protein bar from her pocket, broke it in half, and tossed 1 piece toward the cub. It landed a meter away. The cub sniffed it, took an experimental bite, and then looked back at Sarah with what could only be described as betrayal. "Yeah, I know," Sarah said softly. "Tastes like cardboard. Sorry, buddy. It's all I've got." K9 ate it anyway, then padded closer. Sarah remained perfectly still as the cub sniffed her boots, her legs, her outstretched hand. When it finally settled down beside her, she slowly reached out and scratched behind its auditory ridge. K9 began to purr, a sound Blake hadn't heard from a Crethan cub in 5 years of rehabilitation work. "Sarah," Blake called weakly. "What are you doing?" "They're lonely," she called back. "Look at the sling. They wanted something that felt like being held. Their mother's gone. And you've got them in separate enclosures at night. They're pack animals, Blake. We separated them because they were becoming aggressive toward each other." They weren't fighting. They were play wrestling, and you punished them for it. Sarah's voice carried that particular edge humans got when they'd decided something was wrong and needed fixing. When's the last time anyone just sat with them? Blake had no answer for that. Over the next 3 weeks, Sarah spent every off-duty hour with the cubs. She taught them to fetch, to sit, to respond to their names. She refused to call them by numbers. She reinforced the sling between stronger branches and added more fabric she'd requisitioned from supplies. She requisitioned so much fabric, in fact, that the colony quartermaster filed a complaint. The Galactic Council's regional supervisor arrived on week 4, a pompous Valorian named Administrator Thresh, who'd come to investigate gross violations of xenobiological protocols. He found Sarah in the enclosure, using her scarf to play tug-of-war with both cubs simultaneously, while Blake frantically documented their play behaviors. "This is unacceptable," Thresh boomed. "Humans have no business interfering with." In time, K7 dropped the scarf and charged. Not at Sarah, at Thresh. The administrator's protective detail raised their weapons, but Sarah's voice cracked across the enclosure like a whip. "K7, here." The cub skidded to a halt, looked back at Sarah, then reluctantly padded back to her side. She scratched its head and fed it a treat while maintaining eye contact with Thresh. "You were saying?" Blake stepped forward, mandibles clicking excitedly. "Administrator, the cubs have achieved developmental milestones we thought impossible in captivity. Their problem-solving scores have tripled. They respond to verbal commands. K9 brought Sarah an injured bird last week and waited for her to help it instead of eating it. Do you understand what this means?" Thresh looked at the cubs, then at Sarah, then at the ridiculous crimson and gold scarf that had been transformed into a symbol of something the galaxy rarely saw from humans in official reports. Not their capacity for violence or innovation, but their stubborn, illogical, absolutely human need to care for things that by all rights should terrify them. "How long until they're ready for reintroduction?" he asked finally. Blake's translator crackled with surprise. "With continued socialization? Perhaps 6 months. But, Administrator, Specialist Chen will remain assigned to the project. Full access. Update the Council protocols regarding human-predator interaction." Thresh turned to leave, then paused. "And Specialist? Try not to adopt them. The paperwork is nightmarish." After he left, Sarah looked at Blake. "Did he just give humanity permission to befriend any dangerous animal we want?" Yes, he did. Blake's translator sighed. "The galaxy is doomed." Sarah grinned and threw the scarf for the cubs to chase. K9 caught it first, and K7 tackled their sibling into a rolling ball of scales, teeth, and crimson wool. They were laughing, a chittering, crystalline sound that echoed across the compound. Somewhere, the Galactic Council updated their warnings about humans. Right below, "Never let them near your young," they added a new line. "If they steal something to make a nest, it's already too late." Sarah's scarf, tattered and beloved, swung gently in the alien breeze, cradling 2 apex predators who'd learned that sometimes the scariest thing in the universe was how much a human could love you.